Hello again, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is Tony Richards on the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel History Podcast, and I'm excited to be joined today by a legend himself, a legend in the wrestling promotion end of things, Herb Simmons. And Herb has been in the St. Louis market for over 50 years now. He's got Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling, and he also was in with Sam Mushnick and Larry Matizik and all the names you associate with St. Louis. And so, Herb, thank you so much for making time to be with me today.
Well, it's my honor to join the time tunnel because that's what I'm all about is back in time, and I'm just glad that there's organizations and groups of yours and your podcast that keeps those traditions alive and the legacy because unless you end up with Alzheimer's or dementia, memories is what we've got to live by. And I've always said, in order to get where we are today or into the future, we have to know what the past was about. And wrestling at the Chase was my past.
Yeah, I going to the time tunnel is my favorite thing to do. I like to go back and relive my younger days, and I started out as a fan in 1972, and I went to St. Louis to the Chase and to Kiel Auditorium a few times in '82 and '83 and '84, and just the wrestling tradition in St. Louis is unmatched. There are a lot of cities in America, and a lot of people don't that have wrestling traditions, but a lot of people don't realize that St. Louis was the worldwide headquarters for pro wrestling. I mean, when the NWA was alive and Sam was the president, I mean, St. Louis was the mecca for pro wrestling.
Well, yeah, and any of the legends out there that you talk to now, those who have written books, some of them's even quoted as saying that in their books that you didn't make it to the big time in the business until you made it to St. Louis, working underneath those beautiful chandeliers at the Chase Park Plaza Hotel and working for the late great Sam Muchnick. You felt like you'd reached the top of the mountain when you got to St. Louis, and I think it was all because of Sam knew how to give the fans what they wanted to see, and I mean, thank goodness for him and Harold Koppler making that deal on the airplane and bringing wrestling at the Chase into our homes.
Yeah,
That was
I was just
great.
in the starting processes of writing an article about that, and I'm going to be on the Briscoe and Bradshaw show again here pretty soon, and they want me to do Jim Barnett's life. And
Okay.
Jim sort of pioneered studio wrestling in the Midwest, but Sam had a television committee that was formed in the NWA that was just to keep up with TV and what was the latest things going on in television. And Sam and Harold Koppler, they agreed to do a show, and that also happened in Memphis about the same time. They got a local show in Memphis. Roy Welch and Nick Goulas put a show together, and then it was just amazing how that just duplicated itself throughout the country with guys doing that. But Sam was definitely, he doesn't get the credit of being a television pioneer, but he really was.
Oh yeah, well, and like I said, if it hadn't been for the airplane ride, and Harold had the local station KPLR, Channel 11, and he needed content. Sam had the wrestling and had the talent, and boy, what a match made in heaven there. I mean,
Yeah.
and it from 1959 when it started on television, and then one of the things that some fans don't probably remember before it was on Channel 11, it was on another Channel 5 out of St. Louis for a short period of time. And so it's I'm just thankful that they had that meeting. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you bet. What was the first year that you started in?
73 as one of my first shows I had in Malden, Missouri. And like I said, it was, I go back to the days of when wrestling was wrestling,
Yep.
and nothing against the men and women out there today. But, our business, on one hand, I say it's changed, but on the other hand, it's not. A headlock's a headlock, a wrist lock is a wrist lock. It's just a different time and a different people are geared to the fish out of water syndrome, as we call it, and nothing like that.
So I've been to Malden, Missouri many times. I didn't know that was your first town that you did a show in. What were some of the other towns you were doing back then?
We did myself and Little Dynamite Tony Costa. Later on, shortly after that, we started running shows all the way through southern Boot Hills of Missouri, Rolla, Missouri.
Hmm.
My good friend Carl Lauer, if you remember Carl,
Yeah,
was originally from Rolla, Missouri. And in fact, Carl, we lost about 4 years ago, I think it was now. And what a great guy he was, promoter. Him and Harley Race had teamed up together and did their promotional work. But we ran in some of those rural areas in southern Missouri, Stillville, Missouri,
yeah,
places like that, places that didn't have a lot to do on the weekend.
yeah,
And we were running a small circuit back then. Usually start off on a Thursday night and work our way up through the Boot Hills and into St. Louis, and then over into Illinois, all the way up into Springfield, Illinois, up into Waseca, Illinois, Springfield, Illinois, places like that.
yeah.
Um, that's where I got to meet, so many of the guys. Thanks. I give all the credit in the world to three men, and of course Sam, Larry Matisek, and then Bruiser Brody, Frank Goodish, introduced me to the likes of the Dick Murdochs, Crusher Blackwell, Kamala, people like that. When I needed them, thanks to the connections that I had with Frank, I was able to pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hey, I had 2 or 3 dates back to back." And of course, that's what they wanted. They wanted to, back in the day, one and dones was you couldn't get too many of the top talent at that time. They wanted a full weekend or at least 3 or 4 nights of work because it made it worth their while for them. And plus, I got them a little bit cheaper when I did
I
that.
bet you
So,
did. Yeah. So that led you through the 80s, the 90s, and then you started doing these fan fest events. How many? What number is this for you?
well, I've done. We've always done the Bruiser Brody Memorial. He got killed back in 1988. Terrible time in our business, and
Hmm.
uh, everybody is aware of that, of course. But so his wife and I, lovely lady Barbara Goodish, kind of formed an alliance. I told her that as long as I had air in me, that I was going to make sure that her husband's memories and legacy lived on. And with the help of what she's out doing now, I think we're doing a good job of keeping it out there. I mean, she'll tell you that when she makes these appearances, it gives her chills that when the crowd still starts chanting Brody, Brody, Brody. And so, we started that. And of course, when Larry Matisek passed away, I kind of added his name into the memorial that we do every year. And then each year I pay tribute to Wrestling at the Chase. Like this year is the 66th year headed to stayed on television when it started in 1959. And so we tie that all together and in the last 3 years, I got the wild hair about they have these fan fests all over the country or comic cons, whatever you want to call them. So my senior referee, Nick Rednire, and I sat down and came up with a brainstorm. Why don't we try one and see how it goes over in St. Louis? After all, we just talked about it being the capital and the hub of St. Louis,
Yeah.
being the capital of wrestling. So let's try it. If they can do it all over the country, let's see how it goes. And so we did. We found us a hotel and did the first one and got all the bumps in the road out of the way, we thought. And then lo and behold, the fans loved it. A lot of the talent signed on that weekend, said, "Hey, if you do this next year, we're on." And same way after the second one, we did the first two at the Aviator Hotel, which is now closed down, which I'm glad I did not book it. They wanted me to book for the third year, but I had some issues with the air conditioning for both years that we were there, and they were going to get it straightened out, but they never did. So you know how you get that gut feeling, well, let me start looking around. And
Yeah.
boy, I'm sure glad I am. But just about a month and about 6 weeks ago, I'm watching the late night news, and it come across that the Aviator Hotel had shut the doors. And I'm
Oh,
thinking, man, had I booked it, I'd have been scurrying around trying to find a place, you know.
yeah.
But we're at the Hilton at the St. Louis airport. A lot nicer facility right at the airport. Last year, we made roughly 60 trips in town and had to get them out of town on Sunday. So
Yeah.
logistically, it makes sense having it right there at the airport. Everything's in the same hotel, and so this is our third year. Already got people saying, "Oh man, we can't wait to see what you do for year four." Well, like I told them, you know, I'm not getting any younger, and the business is getting uh, more difficult at times. We're losing a lot of our legends that we grew up on,
Sure are.
and I'm like you. I can reach in the library and pull out a Dory Funk Jr. against Bruiser Brody, or like what we played last Sunday on our Sunday night show, or Ric Flair against the Dick the Bruiser match, as opposed to what some of it is on TV nowadays. And again, not knocking them, it's just the production and the script writing, and that's fine. But you know, I like the ad libbing of it,
Yeah.
and
You,
the mystique of it. You know, I've always said just because the toothpaste is out of the tube doesn't mean I have to continue to squeeze the tube. You know, so
well, for those of you who are thinking about coming, it's going to be at the St. Louis Airport Hilton. It's Fan Fest, Bruiser Brody Memorial, and take it from a traveler. I've traveled. I live in Columbia, which is just neighbor city to St. Louis, just down the road, and I have traveled in and out of St. Louis and Kansas City both millions of air miles. And I'll tell you something. At the St. Louis Airport Hilton, it's super easy. I mean, you're going to love how convenient this is if you're coming into St. Louis from out of town, because it's going to be easy for you to get in. It's going to be easy for you to get out. So it's something to look forward to. Um, this is going to be a year where you're going to put Dory Funk Sr. in the Hall of Fame in St. Louis. And you're going to have special guests there to receive the Hall of Fame induction. And so tell everybody about that. It's something I'm excited about.
well, we just announced this week, within the last few days, that the late great NWA champion himself, Dory Funk Jr., will be making his last trip to the St. Louis area, the Midwest. His wife, Marty, God bless her. Uh, you know, the coaches, a lot of us call him, is getting up in age also, but I'll tell you what, he can still get in there and go with a lot of them. And but you know, as we get older, things start to slow down. And but I am just so excited that Marty and Dory was able to say, "Hey, he wants to come back to St. Louis. He loves St. Louis. He loves Sam Muchnick, and you know, it's and some of the great matches in St. Louis was the Funks against the Briscoes, and you know, people like that that just really kept you intrigued at those matches. And I've always said nobody delivers an uppercut like Dory Funk Jr. does, you know. And
Well, and speaking of that, Jerry Briscoe is going to be there that weekend too.
well, yeah, what a photo op that's going to be right there. I mean, the Briscoes, the Funks, and you know, yeah. To say I was excited and elated when Marty and I talked and just said, "Hey, you know, we're not getting any younger. Why don't we give it one more whirl?" You know, and
Mhm.
so she's coming with him, and I'm
Good.
excited. She's a sweet lady,
Yeah.
Marty. Last I was with her, we were out in Vegas together, and so I'm excited about them coming in, and I think the fans are going to be excited because Dory will have a ton of stories. What I'm really excited about this year also is Bill Apter will be doing his Friday night a question and answer with the boys that come in town early, and so I think a lot of the fans want to sit and they want to hear some of the road stories. They want to ask questions, and
Yeah.
uh, So I think, and Bill Apter does a tremendous job of entertaining. And last year we had him in, and he did his one man band show, and it was hilarious. And this year it's going to be a little bit more laid back. And hey, if you want to ask questions of Greg Valentine or Tito Santana or whoever, you'll have your chance to do that Friday evening.
You got two ladies that I have already reached out to in contact with, and I'm excited to meet them and talk with them. Baby Doll and Missy Hyatt are both going to be there at the Fan Fest, and so I've already made arrangements with them. I'm gonna meet them and shake their hands, and I'm excited about them being there too.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of something for everybody. And I think if you look at the overall lineup that we've got from the generation there, we've got the ladies. Jacqueline is going to be joining us also,
Yep.
but Baby Doll, Missy Hyatt. Uh, and then beyond that, if you look at, we have the ECW connection with Sabu and Bill Alfonso, Shane Douglas. And then you mentioned Dory Funk and
Hmm.
Jerry Briscoe there. And then you got Greg the Hammer Valentine, who was a big part of the St. Louis wrestling. He'll be being inducted into the Hall of Fame that Larry Matisek and Nick and I started many years ago. And, um, to keep the Hall of Fame going in St. Louis, I think means a lot too, as far as the history and legacy of wrestling at the Chase, because it's not just a Hall of Fame that somebody's limousine driver has been put into it, or these guys are legitimate people who put butts in the seats back in the day. Everybody from Sam Muchnick all the way down to the group of 2025 that's going in. Ox Baker, Jerry Blackwell, Greg Valentine, Ivan Koloff, Butch Reed, and of course Dory Funk Sr. And I'm really excited about that because Dory will be there to accept that honor on behalf of his dad, who meant so much to wrestling at the
Yep,
Chase.
you bet. And two other guys, two other families, very famous families in the wrestling business that we haven't mentioned. We mentioned the Funks and the Briscoes, but you also got Kevin Von Erich coming, and you also got a guy who has a very strong St. Louis connection, Bob Orton Jr. And so Bob Orton Sr. wrestled in St. Louis. Bob Orton Jr. wrestled in St. Louis. And of course, Randy Orton claims St. Louis as his hometown. So you got Orton coming in. And I want to tell Bob Orton Jr. I used to drive all over the state of Kentucky in his ICW days to watch him. So I'm excited that Bob Orton Jr. is going to be there.
Well, and I don't like to brag a lot, but I am going to brag a little bit now.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Bob Orton is my guy, and we inducted him into the St. Louis Hall of Fame last year, and of course Randy came in and was there and did the induction for me, and promoters from around the country were calling me and saying, "Man, how did you get Randy Orton to get inside of an SICW ring and do the induction?" And I said, "Well, it helps when his father runs your training academy for you, and Bob and I have done a lot of work together." And I just saw today where they're honoring him out in Cauliflower Alley this year. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited about that in August. Uh, Bob is one of the guys that he's a man of few words, but he let all of us talking inside that squared circle go. And, his father, speaking of his father, was on the first wrestling card in 1959 of Wrestling at the Chase.
Yep.
And I've got tapes of that. And so I just, to have the Orton family there, like you said, and then the Von Erichs. Fritz Von Erich was a mainstay in St. Louis, one of the biggest heels ever. Up there with the Kowalskis of the world, as far as I'm concerned. And but yeah, to have Kevin coming in is an icing on the cake, I think. And then on the other spectrum of guys like that, you got Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah.
It's just so I think there's a little bit for everybody, and you throw in the mix to the Tito Santanas and
I was just going to say you got an Amarillo connected guy there who went to college at West Texas State. And Mercedes Solis is his real name. He played tight end at the West Texas State University, and we all know him as Tito Santana, but he's going to be there that weekend too.
Yeah, and what a guy he is. Just you talk about somebody who just wants to sit and talk with the fans. It's Tito, and a gentleman who always has time for everybody and gives it all when he comes in. I'm really excited to have Tito back here. He's done quite a bit of work for us so over the last several years, and him and I talk all the time. And I think it says a lot for SICW to be able to bring this type of caliber of talent together under one roof. And I think the fans, if they don't have a great time, then shame on them. And they probably aren't true wrestling fans because where can you go and have this many legends under one roof, plus the futures legends of our
Yes.
business? The Bruiser Brody Memorial that will take place, the Hall of Fame induction, the Sam Muchnick Award being given to a local legend, one of our own, Ron Powers, who traveled the world with Bruiser Brody and Blackwell and Murdoch up at Windy City and Chicago, did a lot of work up there, went to Japan with Brody, well deserving of the Sam Muchnick Award. The Larry Matisek Award being given to one of my great young men who started when he didn't weigh $1.50 when he first got into business, Danny Boy Hawkins, and he's getting the Sam Muchnick Award this
Nice.
year. And
Nice.
then, of course, we can't leave out Teddy Long, who's getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. And holla, man, that's Teddy Long. And
And
yeah,
I
it's
got two more guys I want to mention too that are just personal favorites of mine. Nikita
uh-huh.
Koloff is going to be there. Nikita, who actually has changed his name to Nikita Koloff, that's his name now,
Yep.
and he's going to be there. And then, I mean, it's just a personal friend of mine or a personal favorite of mine, and I hope to be friends with him. Dr. D. David Schultz going to be there.
Oh, well, I tell you, that's what I'm going to do to him when he shows up. I'm telling you. No, the anytime the good doctor is in the house, you're going to have a great time. And
Yeah.
there's another guy that him and I talk all the time, and we have became good friends over the years. From the time he wrote the book, him and John Cosper.
Yep. Don't call
Um,
me fake.
well, and he thought he could sit at home and not have to go out and do book signings. And I've told him, I said, "Hey, come on now, Doc. You got to get out there. People want to see. They don't want to see me.
We
Well, and
do.
now he
Yes,
knows
we
what it's
do.
like. Yes, they do. And what a great guy. And you know,
I love that book, and I want to see David. So you tell him there's some
yeah,
people that want to see him.
yeah. Oh, yeah. He's another one I talk to all the time, and I'm excited about the good old doctor coming in town, and
Yeah.
he's a crowd pleaser, believe me.
Oh, I can
Wherever you
imagine.
got him at, so yeah. But yeah, and again, so that just kind of reinforces what I said. There's going to be something for everybody, from the ladies, and then like I said, the Bill Apter show Friday night, then the Hall of Fame starts, and it's advertised starting at 10 o'clock on Saturday, but if we're set up and ready to go 9 o'clock, we're going to open the doors because I want the fans inside. I want them enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And
Now we
and
mentioned all these legends that are going to be there, and all these people. I can't believe you are offering all of this for the amount of money that you're asking people to invest in this. I mean, they're going to get tons and tons and tons of value. How do people get tickets? What do the tickets cost, and where do they go?
Well, I'm going to be real honest with you. I have people call me from around the country and say, "How in the hell can you?" Excuse my language, but can you
That's
do
fine.
it for the price that you're doing it for? And
That's right.
and I said, "Well, I said, don't tell my wife, uh, but again, Tony, I know the demographics of my fans, and I know that people only have a certain amount of money for entertainment, and I would much rather them come in and you have to be a realist about this. I could bring in a half a dozen of these legends, and so is that really a fan fest? I mean, I've done that periodically in the past. I've had as many as 10 or 12 of them in at one time,
Sure.
and it's been a mini fan fest. But last year was like I said, we had 60. This year we're right around that probably we're going to be with the special guests and everything around 50.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but again, if the boys and girls aren't selling their goods, if they aren't making their expenses, uh, they're probably not even going to consider coming back. So I have to make it affordable for the fans to come in.
And you
I
have,
don't want them to
man.
have. I
You
don't want
have.
them to have to say, okay, well, if I spend something on this one, then I can't get something over here.
Right.
Or maybe a father or mother comes in and they got a couple of children with them, and somebody wants to have Tito's autograph, but then they also want Dr. D's autograph. So I've kind of taken that option of we got to make a decision. I mean, life is full of decisions as it is right now.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to do is have our fan fest where they have to walk out of there and say, man, I wish I could have just got this one last signature. So, if you go to sicw.org, the packages are on there. I think if you just buy a Fan Fest ticket for that Saturday, it's like $50. There's different packages if you want the bill after part of it that Friday night, which I think we're up to 100 fans already has bought that, and we're still a week out. That's like a $25 ticket. Because we have to pay for the ballroom, and I'd
Sure.
love to have been able to throw that in there for free. But you know, uh, when I went from the Volkswagen to the Cadillac cost a little bit more money this year. So,
Yeah, you
uh,
bet.
but then there's a bundle package. If you buy the whole bundle package, it's just a little over $100.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
what I got.
and there's people that tell me that some of these fan fest across the country are a couple, $200-300, and again, maybe they are, and maybe they can well justify that.
Sure.
Everybody has their own bottom dollar that they have to at least break even, and that's what my wife and I have said. If we break even, that's what we're looking for. If we make enough to go to Steak and Shake, which was my dear late friend Larry Mattis's favorite place to eat, him and I spent a lot of nights there and made a lot of wrestling deals at a Steak and Shake. And if we got enough to go buy a steak sandwich, that's fine and dandy. But I want the fans, when they leave there on that Saturday night, to say, wow, this was the show of the year. Out of everything we've done, this is it. And
Well, when
the
you
last
first
2 years,
when you first came out with the details, here's what went through my mind. I'm like, here I sit 90 miles away from this. I'm 90 miles away from this. How lucky am I that these 50 people that are going to be there, I want to see every single one of them. I want to interact with every single one of them. I want to tell every one of them how much I appreciate them and thank them for what they've entertainment they've given me over the years. And it's only going to cost me a little over $100. Like, I didn't even think about it. I just like, I'm in. So it's
well, and I
it.
appreciate that. And I believe me, I've heard that from many, many fans that have private messaged me, and they said, are you sure there isn't a mistake on this? Well, don't give me any ideas,
That's right. Yeah, I didn't bring it up to you. I just took the deal.
You're right, but again, I just think that we want everybody to come and have a great time. We're I don't think anybody can say we're not promoting it. I mean, social media wise, we're trying to get the word out there the best we can. We ask people to share it. I'm getting some good coverage out of the St. Louis news marketing area. They're starting to cover it this week for us, and I think having it at the Hilton is a plus for us, and everything underneath that one roof. And this year, everything's going to be in the same ballroom. The Friday night show will be in there. Everything, our vendors will be set up out in the hallway. But last year we had to, like herding cattle, we had to get everybody out after the Fan Fest closed and then get the wrestling ring set up. The wrestling ring will be set up all day long Saturday, so you won't have to do all of that. People can kind of mill around. We'll have plenty of chairs sitting around. We're going to be playing wrestling videos all day long,
Wow.
wrestling at the Chase tapes. And so I think it's going to be something for everybody to do to keep them occupied. They'll have concessions available out in the hallway. We just want people to come, enjoy themselves. Like you said, thank these legends for all the entertainment that they gave us over these years, and because we never know when they're not going to be here.
Yeah, you bet. And just like David Schultz told you, I mean, in the back of their mind, they're sitting there going, I don't know if anybody wants to see me. We do. We want to see them, and we want to interact with them, and we want to thank them for all they've done and our appreciation. And you continue the St. Louis tradition because you run regular wrestling shows on Saturday nights right across the river there at the fairgrounds, and people will come back some other time and talk about that, but I mean, you've kept the St. Louis thing going, and I'm so appreciative of you for doing that. And this Hall of Fame is so important too, because we need to recognize this history and keep it preserved. And you're doing that, and I appreciate you for it.
Well, and again, it's like I said, memories is what we have, and I know you're probably the same way. And when I get to take a little break on the weekend sometimes, and I'm sitting there and there's nothing on TV but bad news, I'll pull out one of the tapes out of the library and throw it in, and I can just sit there, or I get out one of the. I have the collection of all the programs that Sam did. The oldest one I got goes back to 1932.
Oh wow.
Uh, and I will just get them out, and everything from about 1953 I'm sorry, 56 up to about 83 are in hardbound books. I mean, they're like brand new.
Hmm.
And I will just get one of them out and just start going through there and read, about Gene Kaniski's matches, or like I said, whoever it may be, Buddy Rogers, or,
Yep.
when they had an angle going. And then I have all the collection of anybody who ever wrestled in St. Louis. They used to take on these 3x5 index cards like grandma used to have her cooking recipes on. They would type on there, Tony against Herb. Tony won in 15 minutes and 20 seconds with a reverse rolling credo. So anytime you wrestled in St. Louis, I have those complete results.
Wow.
So
Wow. Wow.
so I'll get them out. And if you want to know how many times Dick the Bruiser wrestled in St. Louis, I can tell you, and who he wrestled. And so at times I just get them out and refresh the old memory,
Yeah,
try to
that's
keep it
fun.
fresh.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I bought a St. Louis program from a fella not too long ago who lives in Southern California now. And he wrote me this long email when he mailed me the program. He wrote me this long email about the neighborhood he lived in, and so that worked for Sam, refereed the matches, was his next door neighbor. And
Really?
it's just amazing. I know, like I said, I know a lot of other cities have wrestling traditions, but there's nothing quite like St. Louis. And we want to invite everybody to come the weekend of May 16th and 17th and celebrate it with us.
Yeah, it's going to be great. There at the Hilton at the St. Louis Airport, and sicw.org is the easiest way. If you come to the Bill After Show that Friday night, you'll get your packet. If you bought the entire bundle packet, you can pick it up that Friday night. That way, there Saturday, you don't have to stand in line. You'll be able to come in, walk right into the pre-scheduled line, and you don't have to wait outside. And we've made it really easy and affordable, as you said.
Mhm.
And now we just want the fans to show up and have a great time.
That sounds great. Herb Simmons, everybody from Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling Fan Fest in St. Louis, going on 16th, 17th of May. You don't want to miss it. Come and join us. I want to meet you too and say hi if you see this broadcast, and we will see you there in St. Louis. Thank you, Herb.
Thank you. Appreciate it.